Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Trying to Figure It Out, the show. I'm Mia, your host and mentor. Today, I'm going to be talking about daddy patterns. What triggered this episode is because I just recently did an episode about having a child out of wedlock. And then I also did a video where I talked about how the Black community believes that silence is normal. And in that video, I used my dad as an example. It wasn't until I got saved that I realized how the relationship that I had with my dad actually did affect me as an adult. It affected the way that I chose men, and it just affected my mindset in a certain way. And because I am a podcast host, because I really enjoy conversations, I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. And just in my personal experience, people act like because a person grew up in a two-parent household that they are more valuable. But the more I learn, the more I feel like that's not necessarily the case, because for someone like myself, I did grow up in a two-parent household, but I still felt fatherless. So this episode is for those who feel or have felt fatherless, whether they had a daddy in the house or not. I said this before, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people are new here and didn't hear what I said in my episode from like a year or so ago. I was adopted. My biological father passed away when I was 9 months old, and my mom married, and the man that she married adopted me. So I grew up in a house with my biological mother and the man that adopted me to give me his last name. Like, I'm actually adopted on paper. I had to learn my new name when I was 5 years old in kindergarten. So in my last episode where I talked about having a child out of wedlock, I said that unfortunately I feel like my son ended up with a dad like me. My dad has never bought my son Pampers. He has never bought my son a toy. He has never watched my son for me or anything of that nature. And it's not because my daddy don't love or care for us, but it's just that he married my mama and took us in as his children because he loved my mama. And I'm not saying that he didn't love me or he didn't love his kids, but I'm just saying that I really do believe that when a person doesn't have children of their own, sometimes it shows in their actions. I've said this before as well. I grew up in a house where my mama yelled and screamed. So the way I dealt with that is just by saying nothing. I felt silenced as a child. So growing up, I didn't realize how the relationship that I had with my dad affected me, but it did. And I just learned how to numb myself. I just learned how to just accept things for what it is. Like, it is what it is. At the end of the day, that day gon' end. So I don't sit around just being upset about the relationship that I had or do not have with my dad. But I have definitely seen that I have chosen my dad in men. I do remember being a little girl where me and my daddy would like lay down and watch movies, and I had a little voice at one point. My dad had a little voice, so we bonded in that way. But the older I got and the older he got, the only thing I really saw him do was work. And so I do remember me and my brother going to my daddy and saying stuff like, "Daddy, you don't spend time with us." We even went to therapy, but it was just like my daddy couldn't get it through his brain that he was not spending time with us. And when we would bring it up, my dad would say stuff like, "I put food on this table. It's kids in Africa that don't got food." And even though I didn't understand why that mattered when I would tell him that he wasn't spending time with us as a child, as an adult, I still don't understand why it mattered. Because yes, you were providing for us, but you still didn't give us what we needed. And I don't say this from a place where I'm not grateful for what my daddy did for me. I just believe that two things can exist at one time. I can be grateful, but I can also be honest. And yes, you did provide for us, but you were not there for us in many ways. So I used to only want to date older men. It wasn't until I got my heart broken really bad when I was depressed, soon before I met God, that I realized age ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Because just because you're older don't mean you're mature. But when I grew up, I was always called someone who was more mature. So let me just say the type of relationship that I've had with my dad. I did not grow up in a house where me and my daddy talked. It wasn't like a, "Daddy, I'm having a boyfriend problem, can we talk?" It was not none of that. It was, "Daddy, you don't spend time with us." And then it was, "I put food on this table." I know as I got older, there were times that I would call my daddy and ask him, "Hey, I need $50, or hey, I need whatever. And he'll be like, okay, I'm gonna get it for you. Never got a call back, never said nothing else about it. And then by the time that I would say something to him about it, then he had whatever excuse it was. It was like I could never count on my daddy to ask my daddy for anything, whether it was financial or I remember one time something was wrong with my car and it wouldn't turn on. And I was like in the area where he was from. And I know wherever you at, it may take you time to get here, but I was sitting outside for hours before my daddy came. Even though I grew up with a dad, unfortunately, I'm the woman who's gonna have to call somebody to pay somebody to come help me. If it's anything wrong with my tire, if it's anything wrong with my car, I gotta call somebody for help. My daddy could probably do it or get somebody to do it, but I have to figure out a way to get it done. And it's really sad because the man that my mom is with now, when it comes to car stuff, he knows how to do everything concerning a car, or most things concerning a car. But you can tell whenever it's like, hey, can you help me do this or that on my car? He don't want to do it. So I got people in my family who can help do stuff, but they don't want to. And I don't think it's just me. I think it's just the people. Like, they just don't want to do it. So anyway, I only wanted to date men older than me. And I really don't know why. But the more I listen to podcasts, the more I sought deeper into myself, the more I realized that must have had something to do with yearning for a father's love. And so I told y'all that I had a heartbreak. And that heartbreak was from a man that was 15 years older than me, that I was pretty much with for 2 years. And once I finally opened up to my mama about him, she would say, he act like your daddy. And I couldn't understand that because my mama married my daddy. You know what I'm saying? But after it ended, I did realize one thing. That man was 15 years older than me and didn't have no kids. And he was in the streets. I was in the streets as well at that time. I had such a traumatic story. He had a warrant and he got into a car accident, but he was driving drunk. And so the car was just all messed up. He had broken ribs and everything, but I couldn't find him. I was having to call, who did I have to call? Something concerning the police. I can't even remember who I had to call, child. I'm gonna put it on the screen. But I had to call basically the police because the hospitals was telling me he wasn't there. I'm looking up his name, he not in jail, but he's basically in handcuffs at the hospital he's at, so no one can tell me that he's there. And so about a week prior to that, he had like $7,000 in the house. And I was putting my money with his money so that we could flip the money because I'm trying to be submissive to a man. This is the way he wanted to do it. This is the way that I allowed him to do it. But when he got in that car accident, I couldn't find no money in the house. And I still to this day don't know what happened to the $7,000 that he had. So I had to figure out a way to come up with rent. And then he ended up getting out and he ended up making it where I was able to pay the other bills. But it was shortly after that he left me. And I started to think about that because I was put in a horrible financial situation and was really in survival mode. And I started to realize that a lot of decisions that he made with money was horrible. And it made me realize that this older man that did not have kids did not understand the responsibility of having kids. And that made me think, this is my daddy. Like, this is the only thing that I know my mama used to talk about with my daddy that I finally understand. That he was horrible with money. So my mama controlled all of the money that came in the house. I didn't do that, but it was just like, this man who don't have no kids to him handles money a certain way. He doesn't understand the responsibility of your seed or your egg. He doesn't understand that when I make decisions, I don't just make decisions for me, I make decisions for my son as well. And so I realized that that was very similar to my daddy. But he felt like the things that I would tell him that I didn't like, he felt like, you don't know how much I care about you. You don't know how much I do for you because I'm bringing money into this house. I'm not like that. I've never been like that with no other woman. In my mind at the time, I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't enough? Like, that ain't enough? Like, what I'm supposed to do with that? Like, okay, you came here to my house when you was already living somewhere else. The bills was getting paid regardless. What I need from you is not just money. Like, that's not enough. And so it took me time to realize as well that I keep ending up with men who think that money is enough. And that's the same thing that my daddy used to say. I put food on this table. One of the things that I left out in my last episode where I talked about having a child out of wedlock is my son's dad. I talked about how he messaged me on Instagram and I didn't know who it was and I was trying to be mean to him. And then once he got out of prison, he ended up like coming to pick me up and we would drive around and stuff like that. And one of the things that really pushed me towards him was because he started giving me money. He started giving me money for my nails and stuff like that. And like I said, at that time, I was already living in an apartment by myself. I was 19, about to be 20. I found out I was pregnant on my 20th birthday. But I was 19, about to be 20. I was making cash. I had money in a safe. I was going to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't that I needed a man to come help me. But so during that period of time, I know I was going 9 months, not talking to no men. But when I was in that apartment, when I first moved there, I had a boyfriend that I dated in high school. We started dating again. And he came to that apartment with me. And for a few months, he didn't have a job. I was filling out applications for him. I worked in the mall, which was directly across from my apartments. And so I'm telling him, hey, so-and-so is hiring in the mall. So-and-so is hiring in the mall. He didn't want to do that. So I was applying for jobs for him in the mall just to try to help him get a job. But then he ended up getting a job that was probably like 10 minutes away. And so he would drive my car and I would walk home because I was trying to help him. And so he ended up getting a job and he was making more money than me. And so I'm like, okay, you gonna help with some of these bills around here? For all of the months that you done sat here and ate up all of my food and had the air on all day and I'm working overtime, like, are you gonna help with some of these bills? That man did not want to give me no money. He was there for months with me. I remember one time he gave me $60 for groceries. But I'm telling you that because most of the men that I dealt with prior to him didn't help me do nothing. So when he would give me money for my nails and stuff like that, I associated that with love because I was not used to nobody doing nothing for me. I was used to always having to do it by myself. I was used to calling my daddy for help and my daddy not being able to help me or not helping me. So somebody who was doing something for me in the beginning of us talking to each other, that made me feel like, okay, he really liked me. And that was something that pushed me towards him, which is also what I said about the older man that I was dealing with for 2 years. You know, he was like, I do this and that financially, so that should be enough. And then the guy that I dated after that, he also would give me money. So again, like I said, I associated people doing stuff for me with love because I was not used to anybody doing anything for me. I've always done everything that I've had to do on my own. It wasn't because I wanted to, but because I had to. And still to this day, I still feel like I have to. The people who can help, even if it's not financially, if you can help me with my car and you don't want to help me with my car, I'm not entitled to your help. But it's just that I always have to do everything by myself. And so the little things that I noticed about missing the love of a father, about having a dad who only gave me things financially, I picked my daddy in men. The older I get, the more I see it. The wiser I get, the more I see it. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of us. When we don't have a dad, when we don't have a father figure, we pick anything because we don't know what to pick. We can have a dad in our lives that made us feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is this is what I have for you. You should just accept it and take it. And we'll do the same thing with men. It's just, it end up being the same person with a different face. And so when I first came to God, before we left the house that we were in, I would sit in my closet and I would tell Mason, don't come in here. And I would just pray and I would just talk to God. And so I felt like God was the only one that would really listen to me. But then after we moved and went to Tulsa and Atlanta, I felt like it was amazing the way that I would see God's hand move. When he would answer a prayer, when he would just say something to me that brightened up my whole day, where it just reassured me that he was there. It was like if I prayed for provision, he would provide. If I wanted to talk to him, he would talk to me. If I just needed him to increase my faith for the day, he would do it. And I started to feel like I have a parent, like I have a father, like I really have a dad. I feel like my parents did what they felt like they were supposed to do. Especially, I feel like my parents did better than what they had. So I'm not mad at them, but how I was raised and how they acted in the house, that did affect me. And so one of the things that I've learned recently is that my mama, she manipulates to control, but I don't think that she's doing it intentionally. And there's a lack of boundary. She feels entitled to know about my life or to know about certain things. And I feel like there's a difference between being private and being secretive. And so I didn't understand what the issue was, but I had to let God open my mama up to be receptive to whatever I had to say on his time and not my own, because don't cast your pearls before swine. Like, you have to be discerning about when you come to a person and say something to them, is it time for me to say something or not? And it really took me leaving and going to another state for my mama to open up and say, okay, what's wrong? Why is our relationship like this? Is there anything that I can do to fix it? Versus in the past, if I said, hey mama, can you not do this with Mason, or can you not do that? Then now she's offended and she's cussing and she's screaming, and it's just like, bruh, like I'm just trying to communicate something to you. But I brought that up because when I would see God's hand move, when I would see God move, I felt like, man, I do have a parent. I do have a mother. I do have a father. And even though I knew that I had a daddy and a mama, even though I know that my daddy and my mama loved me, I felt like I finally felt the love of a parent. So like I said in the beginning, sometimes we grow up in households where we have a dad, but we still feel fatherless. We don't have a dad and we feel fatherless. And the only thing that can really fill that void is God. The Bible talks about receiving the spirit of adoption through Jesus Christ. When we accept Jesus Christ, we are adopted into God's family. We are now sons of God. We can feel it. I think it's somewhere in Romans. My phone is far away. I just wanted to say all of that to say that you do have to pay attention to your choices, because your choices are a lot of times based on what you had or did not have. As much as you have probably tried to numb yourself, as much as you have probably tried to convince yourself that this doesn't affect me because I don't feel nothing towards it, it really does. And the only way you can pick in relationships correctly is if God is opening your eyes and your ears to things that ears haven't heard and things that eyes haven't seen. Only God can make you feel that you have a father when you don't. Only God can make you feel like my daddy is actually here when my daddy was not actually here. Only God can open your eyes to make you see that you are not discerning in the way that you pick. Only God can open your eyes to see that you are missing all the red flags, but it's because you won't come to me. You won't ask me. You won't read my word and see what my word says. I'm giving you in black and white what you need. And this man right here is not showing what I would have for you. The man that God wants for you is not just going to be a provider. I'm sorry, he's not. That's not normal. And unfortunately, I feel like these are the type of things that happen when we do things out of God's will. It's just one of our consequences. And at the end of the day go in. But if we draw nigh unto him, he'll show us. He'll show us. He'll teach us the things that our daddy didn't teach us. The things that your parents missed, God is here to show you. God is here to teach you. So I just hope that this episode encouraged you to draw closer to God, because whatever it is you're looking for in a man, whatever it is you feel like you're lacking in a relationship, God will tell you exactly what you need. Sometimes people have things to say about bastards. Sometimes they have things to say about those who grew up without fathers, but there are many people who grew up with dads that still feel like they don't have dads. That same man that I told you that was the older man that broke my heart. When I first met him, he said, I can tell you grew up in a house with your mama and daddy, but you only saying that because you grew up different than me. Because I can honestly say I've learned nothing from my daddy except for what not to choose. That's it. And I love my daddy, but He didn't teach me nothing. He didn't teach my brother nothing. He didn't teach my brother how to change a tire. He didn't teach us nothing. And unfortunately, because he loved my mama so much, and not necessarily because we were his kids, that's just how it played out. That's just the hand that I was dealt. But if you feel fatherless, if you feel alone, if you feel like, dang, I just wish my daddy was here, the faithfulness and the loving kindness of God will fill that void. Hey, let me ask you a question right quick. Did you subscribe already? It only takes a few seconds to subscribe. But while you're here, I just want to let you know, I'm now offering one-on-one mentorships. I teach through experience. Yes, on social media, I do share my journey. I do share certain topics to help others, but I'm now offering one-on-one mentorship so that I can mentor you based on your personal experience. I have a soft mentorship as well as a full mentorship. I'll be leaving that in the description below if you're interested. All right, back to the show. Here's the scripture that I was talking about the spirit of adoption and just coming into the family of God. In Romans 8:14, it says, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Now, if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in his sufferings, in order that we may also share in his glory." So with all of that being said, pay attention to patterns. Pay attention to who you choose. Go to God so you can choose correctly. Go to God so you can see correctly. And know that even if you feel fatherless, even if you feel like you don't have the parents that you wish you had in the natural, that in the spirit, your Father is here, your Father is faithful, and he will never leave or forsake you. If this helps you and you would like to sow into this word, I'll be leaving my Cash App on the screen. If you have any topics or anything that you want me to talk about, just let me know, and I'll definitely make that podcast episode for you. I'll see y'all next time on Trying to Figure It Out, the show where we do not pretend that faith is pretty. Bye, y'all.